This is my drawing of Buggy the Clown. This is one tough cookie, let me tell you. I tried to draw him comic book style, so if you like, remember to follow me on the Twitter, Facebook, and the other one, Instagram.
One Piece Orangetown Arc Recap, Chapters 8 through 21.
Welcome, brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you not so much a review this time, but a arc recap. I've been trying to do these to catch up to where I'm at, as I'm now in the 5th or 6th story arc, and I was originally going to do wrap-ups for the volumes, but ultimately I think the arcs is better because a lot of times the volumes just sort of end on not so much a cliffhanger, but just sort of a weird note because that's just all they had in there. So this review, this recap, will cover in general what happened in the Orangetown arc, also known as the Buggy the Clown arc. Now, the neat thing about this one is that up until now there's been not a whole ton of characters introduced. Really, main characters, we have Luffy and Zoro, and we start out with them out to sea. They're hungry, they're directionally challenged. Luffy grabs onto this bird in the sky and gets carried off. Zoro is going and kind of chasing after him and winds up picking up a few stranded, people that were floating on some debris in the ocean. Turns out that they try to attack him until they find out that he is the great pirate bounty hunter Zoro. And long story short, we find out that they're part of Buggy the Clown's crew. So when we wind up getting to Orangetown, the bird winds up dropping Luffy off, and we're introduced to a main character, and that is Nami. And Nami is running from Buggy the Clown's pirates because she's just stolen a map of the Grand Line. Her and Luffy kind of wind up meeting up and run off and get away from them. When she finds out, though, that Luffy is a pirate, she hates pirates, and we don't know why at the time, and it takes a while to actually find out. But basically, what she winds up doing is going to turn him in to Buggy, and pretty much blame the map stealing on him so she can get close to Buggy and his crew. She can try to assimilate into her crew. We find out that she's really kind of a smart master thief. The 3 pirates that were floating on debris in the ocean is because she had stolen their boat and their treasure. And kind of left them with a storm about to head their way. So we find out some things about her, and we're introduced to her as a character. When Zoro does finally get there, he winds up coming in, and Luffy for several chapters is actually in a cage. He's put in a cage, and Buggy and his crew, they basically take Nami into the folds, and her intention is just to kind of get him drunk and steal from him. But what winds up happening is this Orangetown has been basically taken over by Buggy and his crew. And the citizens have fled and pretty much left because of these pirates taking over. So it's very much a story of them trying to kind of save this village too that's oppressed from them. So Luffy winds up eventually being rescued briefly by Zoro. Zoro is injured, but he gets him away in this cage, and eventually Luffy winds up getting out of the cage because we're introduced to Buggy the Clown and some of his henchmen, and his first henchman, his first in command, first mate is Moji, and Moji's a lion tamer. He commands this huge lion, Richie, and he's sent to go get Luffy and Zoro, and winds up Luffy's in the middle of the street in this cage that they can't get him out of, and he winds up going and busting Luffy out of the cage. The lion does, by attacking him. There's some pretty cool stuff in there. We're introduced to this dog, Shushu, and there's a whole backstory into why he's guarding this store for his master and everything else. But we see some respect come from Nami to Luffy, even though he's a pirate, because Luffy winds up going and just pile driving Moji and Richie the lion to save Shushu, who's defending this store. And there's a number of other great things that happen in the arc. It really is nice to go and to see some character development. We're introduced then to Boodle, the mayor he looks like a poodle with his hair, the mayor of Orangetown, and he explains how basically everybody's living up in this refugee camp, and they fled the village, right? So Boodle winds up going and getting some big balls on him, and he's going to go after Buggy and goes to challenge him. Luffy winds up basically just knocking him out because he's like, this guy's going to get himself killed. And Luffy and Zoro decide to go and take on Buggy and his crew. It's actually pretty cool because Buggy has some colorful people with him. His second mate is this Kabaji, the sword swallower, and he's always Kabaji the acrobat, but he can swallow swords and ride on unicycles, and basically he's like an acrobatic swordsman. And him and Zoro actually have a pretty good tangle, a pretty good fight. Zoro does eventually come out on top, but I mean, he fights him while wounded, and the fight goes on for quite some time. Kabaji pulls out every dirty trick in the book. Zoro does wind up coming out on top, and then Luffy winds up having to go toe-to-toe with Buggy. We find out that Buggy has actually eaten the Chop Chop fruit. Now, remember, Luffy has obviously eaten the Gum Gum fruit, and that makes him stretch. Well, we find out very quickly into the fight that Buggy is able to, basically pull his body apart, his body parts into different pieces. So there's several great action scenes and chapters, and they kind of use that dynamic in really cool ways because, I mean, how do you kill a guy that can stretch in Luffy, and how do you kill a guy that can, if you cut him, he can basically just pull himself back together. So ultimately, you wind up seeing some character development just with Buggy, his crew, and then of course Nami, who we don't know a lot about. We just know that she's this thief. She mentions that she needs 100 million berries to buy some town or some village. And she winds up going and trying to take off during the middle of the fight and grab a hold of Buggy's treasure. Buggy winds up stabbing Luffy's pirate, his straw hat that was given to him by Shanks, which is near and dear to him. So we see some of that develop. And as far as Luffy's attachment to that, we also see a real cool thing that Shanks and Buggy were on the same crew at one point, same pirate crew. We see that in a flashback, and I don't know because I haven't read farther ahead than where I'm at, but I think that it seems like that might be important later on at some point. Again, I don't know. That's just my own personal opinion. So the bottom line is that Luffy does wind up coming out on top. He eventually is able, with the help of Nami, to defeat Buggy. And what they do is they basically take his body parts and they go and she ties him up, while he's apart. So the only thing he has left is like his head and his arms and his feet to pull back together. So they wind up coming out on top. Like I said, Zoro, of course, is injured. But the three of them wind up taking off. She reluctantly decides to join their crew. And to tell you the truth, favorite character of the arc, I would say, as far as like if you had to pick like an enemy or whatever, certainly I think Buggy was pretty cool and pretty colorful and just kind of a neat addition to the whole world. But to where I'm at right now, which is getting close up onto chapter 185 or 90, something like that, I really, really like Nami. I like her because her character is introduced and it's very cryptic, and for a number of chapters you don't know what her motivations are. She seems very money-driven and selfish on one hand, but on the other hand, you can see that there's more there. So I think she's a very deep character, and certainly is one of my favorites, in this arc and just kind of moving forward to where I'm at right now. So all in all, I think it was a good arc. It spanned about 15 chapters, I think, about 14, 15 chapters, maybe from chapter 8 to 21-ish, I think. And it really, again, just like with the first arc, the Captain Morgan arc there, the Romance Dawn you're developing and building towards this crew. You're building towards these main characters that you're going to see 500, 600, 700 chapters from now. So they're laying the groundwork for, although some people maybe when this came out 15 years ago thought it was slow going at the start, I think it really is necessary for the development of that story. Because as I said in my Romance Dawn arc recap, it's all about the journey, and this is cool. We see a different place. This town winds up getting saved by Luffy. And we wind up seeing, too, that Luffy and Zoro both have that kind of tunnel vision, undying determination. When he sets his goal on something, it's going to happen. He wants Nami as his navigator, and he winds up eventually getting her. And she hates pirates. And we don't know why. I mean, it's, somebody near and dear to her was killed by a pirate. They alluded to that. But other than that, we don't really know exactly at this point what's going on. She just hates pirates, but she reluctantly does kind of at least they're going in the same direction for a while, so and joins up with them. She won't admit she's a pirate. I don't think, at least at this point, she won't, but she is working with them, So all in all, like I said, a lot of fun. Favorite villain I think would be Buggy, although I did really enjoy Moji and Richie, the lion tamer and the giant lion. I thought it was kind of cool. And then, of course, favorite, just character that I liked. good character, I guess you would say. You know, a main character would be Nami, or character that you were introduced to. So, and again, like I said, these arcs are necessary at the beginning to build everything for the future and to lay a really strong foundation to build this giant house that is One Piece on top of. So, let me know what you think, though, brothers and sisters, in the comments down below. I was certainly excited to see them travel to a different location, introduced to some new characters, certainly see some great action, and you know, and definitely I was looking forward to moving into the next one. You know, at this point, I think I was pretty sold on the series as a whole, and I was just really looking forward to getting into the next one and getting into the next one. So I think for me anyway, that this hooked me, you know, within that first, you know, 15 or 20 chapters, as I really started to enjoy just the characters, the comedy, you know, the development of those, the locations, and then, you know, and we don't even really know much about the grand scheme of things overall. So, but, you know, feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching you in the next one, Nation.
As always, thanks for watching, brothers and sisters, and remember, join the Nerd Nation. It's the right thing to do. Trust me. Tell them Jim sent you.